Today we get a story time of this crazy dream stand that does something seriously unthinkable. Like the video for nothing, let's just jump right into it. So let's call the subscriber who sent in today's story Calvin. So anyways, right, Calvin was in class one day, and, he was having a discussion with some of his friends about, Minecraft YouTubers, popular YouTubers, for example, and they were talking about, whether they liked them, whether they made good content, etc., right? So, Mr. Beast came up, and everyone was like, oh, yeah, Mr. Beast is great, and Calvin was like, yeah, I'm a big fan of Mr. Beast, and other big YouTubers came up, but then, Dream, the big Minecraft YouTuber Dream came up, and Calvin honestly wasn't a fan. Personally, right, it's totally cool if you like Dream, it's totally cool if you don't like them, I really don't care. At the end of the day, you like what you like, that's what I believe. But anyways, right, so Calvin was pretty vocal about how he wasn't a fan of Dream, he didn't really like, I don't know, the culture around his videos, etc., stuff like that. But, there was, Calvin and his friends were not the only ones listening into this conversation. There was another kid who was listening in. And, we're going to call him Ben, but he's also going to be referred to as the Dream Stan. So if you hear me say Ben or the Dream Stan, I'm talking about the same guy. Anyways, right, there was this kid named Ben, and he was listening into the conversation. And as Calvin was saying, Dream, he's a crappy creator, I don't really like him that much, Ben, who is listening in, stands up and walks over to the table that Calvin and his friends are sitting at and comes over and says, "You will regret saying that." And Calvin is, really shocked. He looks up, he's like, "Hey, yo, what? Is everything okay, bro? Is everything good, dude? Are we okay?" But anyways, right, so the day is over, and this is where things start to get really weird, really uncomfortable, really scary, right? Anyways, right, so Calvin, he heads home, it's the end of the day, and, he's just, in his bedroom, just playing Minecraft, whatever, he's on his computer, and for some reason, right, he decides that, he's just gonna, go and, I don't know, maybe make his bed before he goes into bed. I don't know about you, but honestly, whenever I go to bed and I just slip into a bed that, is pre-made and the sheets are done just right and the pillows are just properly, just put together just perfectly, dude, I'm having the best time ever. That is going to be the greatest sleep I've ever had, if that is the case. So anyways, right, Calvin goes over to make his bed to make sure that it's looking nice, and he goes by his window, and when he goes by his window, he catches something in the corner of his eye, and it's startling enough that he stops in his tracks and turns to face towards the window. Now that he has full sight of looking out the window, he sees this person standing in his backyard. So he had a pretty open backyard. He didn't have a fence around his house. It was pretty easy for people to if they wanted to walk in his backyard. But anyways, right, there was a guy standing in his backyard, and this guy had a mask on. And it Calvin was first of all, he was freaking out. This was terrifying. Dude, if this happened to me, I would legitimately just, my pants, they would be soiled. No question about it. There isn't even a bit of a question about that, dude. My pants, they'd be gone, bro. They'd be out of here. But, as he's terrified, he's looking at the masked subject, and he notices that the mask is the dream mask. The two eyes and the smiley face, the dream mask. So at this point, right, he's really freaked out. Calvin is just thinking to himself, why does this random person who is standing in my yard, looking up into my window, and there was lights on in his bedroom, so you could see into his window at this point. Why is some rando looking into my bedroom with a dream mask on? And at this point, right, things are starting to click in his head. Because it's as he saw the dream face, he was reminded of Dream. And then he thinks, okay, when I'm thinking of Dream, what happened recently to me that involves Dream? And sure enough, right, he thought about the conversation he had earlier that day. And then he thought about when Ben, a.k.a. the crazy Dream Stan, came up to him after, Calvin said the dream sucked very publicly, right, came up to him and said, "You will regret this." So all of a sudden, right, Calvin is putting two and two together, and it has a pretty sneaking suspicion, right, that it is in fact Ben that has put on this mask, who he definitely had this mask. He definitely bought it either from Dream's official store or a bootleg version or whatever, right? and is to get revenge, is like stalking him or whatever. So at this point, right, Calvin, as soon as he figures this out, rushes to his window and closes like the curtains so that like, Ben or whoever is out there, because he's not totally sure who is out there, but Ben or whoever is out there can't be looking in anymore, because like either way, dude, even if that is Ben, bro, like that's super creepy. So the next day in school, right, he goes up to Ben and he just looks at him. He's like, dude, what are you thinking? And Ben just looks at him and has this kind of smug grin. Like, Ben, like, has a grin that kind of, like, shows, like, he knows what he's doing, and he's, like, very smug about it. And he's like, what are you talking about, Calvin? I don't know what you're talking about. And, Ben is looking at him, like, or no, Calvin's looking at Ben, and he's like, dude, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You were in my yard last night with that dream mask on. I know it was you, dude. Like, I 100% know it was you. And Ben looks at him and smiles even more, as if to be like, yes, like he saw me, like he's freaking out, like I'm getting to him. But Ben was just like, man, I have no idea what you're talking about. But the thing is, right, Calvin, he was not buying it. In fact, he was almost even more certain that it was Ben that was in his yard the night before. So he comes up with a pretty good plan, assuming that Ben is going to come back tonight, right, and do the whole thing again to scare him again. But this time, right, Calvin is prepared. Calvin is prepared this time, and Ben will not be as smug after tonight. Real quick, if you made it this far into the video, comment dream down below. I'm going to try and heart as many of those comments as I possibly can just to say thank you. If you don't get a heart, don't take it personally. I'm pretty busy, but just know that either way, I appreciate you watching this far into the video. And now, let's see exactly how Calvin is going to, one, expose, Ben for, actually being the guy stalking him, and then two, get absolute revenge on Ben. It's pretty good. Anyways, right, so the night comes and Calvin is in his room. And his plan, right, is he's going to be in his room like normal. And he's going to wait for Ben to come and try and scare him again by looking into his window. However, Calvin has a friend. And we're just going to call this friend Bob. I'm not that creative with names. Anyways, though, Ben's friend, or Calvin's friend's Bob, right, is going to be secretly hiding outside. And I'm not going to tell you what he's going to do. I'm just going to explain what happens. So anyways, right, Calvin, he's sitting in his room again. And this time, right, he's looking out in the corner of his eye to see when, Ben is going to show up in his dream mask. And, he waits a little bit and he's just kind of chilling for a second. And then finally, right, he sees movement. And he looks all the way, and sure enough, right, someone about the size of Ben, about Ben's height, is sitting in his yard, with a dream mask on, looking ominously up into his room. And with that, right, Calvin looks down at his phone and sends a text to his friend Bob saying, it's time. So as soon as, Calvin sends that text, Calvin kind of like walks up to the window to look out, and he watches as his friend Bob springs from the bushes and, goes up to whoever this guy is in the dream mask. Bob has his camera out with the flash on, recording. Bob goes up, and because like the guy is so shocked at this point because some rando jumped out, Bob is able to rip off the dream mask. And sure enough, it's the crazy dream stand. It is Ben. He is standing there looking at them completely like dumbstruck, completely like phased, dazed at this point. Not phased, Glenn. He's completely dazed at this point. And right now, Bob is like, gotcha. Has the video recording, ripped off his mask, and after that, right, Ben kind of like gets back to his senses and sprints out of there. But it was already too late because Bob goes up to the house and Calvin says, did you get it? Did you get it? And, Ben's like, or Bob's like, I'm not totally sure. Let's check the footage. So Bob pulls out his phone and they watch the footage, and it's a little blurry. It's a little shaky. It's not some like TV production quality, right? But at the end of the day, it shows very clearly, who is behind the mask. So the next day rolls around, and, Calvin and Bob and his friend Bob, they both go to the principal's office. Calvin explains what happened 2 nights ago, and then explains that he had a plan to catch whoever it was, and that he had a suspicion that it was one of his classmates. And then he shows the footage, and the principal is honestly at this point very shocked. So sure enough, right, the principal goes on a loudspeaker and tells like, oh, we need Ben to the front desk or whatever, or to the principal's office. And Ben comes and the principal asks like, did you do this? And Ben denies it. But the thing is, right, the principal asks, Ben denies it, and then the principal shows the footage that can't be like explained. After Ben sees the footage, right, he knows he's defeated. He admits guilt. The principal says why, and Ben's like, I needed to defend Dream's honor. And the principal just gives him a look. He's like, what? All right, bro, you're getting a week of detention. Subscribe if you haven't already, and then click one of the videos on screen or one of my videos in the recommended. Thank you, peace.